Hi there, and welcome back to the CKM Red Rugby League channel. As ever, we are back for another Super League preview, and joining me from the fantastic Rugby League, in my opinion, is Oliver. How are you going, mate?
I am good, man. I was buzzing. Finally got to watch a bit of Super League last night. Got to watch a triple header. Well, it was last night for me, at least, over here in Australia. And, three really good games. So I'm keen to look towards next week at some of the games. I'll be staying up very late to watch, but more than happily so.
Yep. And before we do get started, we have a sponsor this week. The fantastic RCR Nutrition have jumped on with us to help support the channel and help bring you guys a great deal too. So for all your supplement needs, protein, pre-workouts, head to www.rcr-products.co.uk and use code CKM to get 20% off your order. They ship worldwide as well. So if you are not watching in the UK, I know that we have a lot of viewers in Australia and PNG. So head over there, use code CKM, 20% off your order, and get ready for summer 2021 because let's face it, 2020's not been brilliant.
Well, hopefully summer 2020 for us Aussies, around December time. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, I forget that you guys have backwards seasons to us. But then again, we don't have real seasons over here anyway. So we'll that's by the by for us. Yeah. With that, then you'll see up on screen now all the results from this week's games. All that been and gone now, and with that, then we will jump straight into the first game. It is the Huddersfield Giants taking on the Warrington Wolves. That one Saturday, and Huddersfield be refreshed from having a rest this week. Didn't have a game because obviously we're down to 11 teams in the comp right now. Whereas Warrington, slow start, but eventually coming back to see off Hull KR in their game. The Wolves looked good when things started clicking.
Yeah, definitely. Heading into this one this week, I'm a bit torn, to be honest. Two really good sides, two sides that have looked very good so far, both on 8 points, I believe, along with a few other sides. Here's me, right? So Huddersfield looked dominant for a while there against Leeds, but let Leeds back into the game in that second half, who ended up getting the close win. As you were talking about, it took a little while for Warrington to get going, but once they did get going against Hull KR, they put them to the sword. So we're talking about two half performances, I guess you could say, if you'd agree with me there. Like we're looking at two sides who put in a really good half of footy, like a very good half. So it'll be interesting to see here. I think it'll be a close game. I don't know, something. I'm feeling Warrington here. I just feel like, I guess, they impressed me a bit more than Huddersfield. But with that being said, you look at the two sides they were up against. Huddersfield were up against the tougher competition there. But I just think Warrington ended up looking a bit better in that second half against Hull KR. So, look, I'm going to have to go with the Wolves here. But I'm going to say 8-12. And I think it'll be a high-scoring game. But I think it'll be a close one.
Yeah, and I'd agree on the high scoring. Just going across the bottom of the screen there, you've got the last 5 meetings between these sides. Warrington taking 4 out of 5. I've seen nothing out of Warrington that leads me to believe that won't be, them moving to 5 out of 5 by the end of this one. They looked really good when Widdop and Austin started clicking, and it seemed like that was the first time that they really had. I mean, when you change up your spine, it's always going to interfere with the flow of your team a little bit. But once they started firing through the middle, you've got players like Ben Curry coming off who, he was so good when he started hitting gaps and really running through, and he did run amok up the middle. But, Huddersfield have a better pack than Hull KR. So, and while Huddersfield are still one of the form teams, take nothing away from them. Like, it's just, when you look at how they played in the last 15 minutes against Leeds, Warrington have they're on about the same level as where Leeds are, taking away yesterday's performance, which we'll get into later. But the Giants have a more sturdy pack. They aren't going to fall apart as easy up the middle. So Warrington are going to win and lose this game on the edges for me, but I think I'd agree it's going to be a high scoring points. I see more than 40 points in this one. I also see Warrington getting up by at least 12 in this.
Yeah, all right. Just on Widdop and Austin before we move on, I know it wasn't widely reported, but there were rumblings that I sort of heard from different people that they were not getting along too good. I'm not too sure. That's all I heard, that they weren't really getting along. And of course, that sort of perpetrated those rumors that Widdop wanted to come back to the NRL, to the Dragons. Mary McGregor quickly said no, that they weren't interested in bringing Gareth Widdop back. However, yeah, I thought it was interesting that during the week, as I said, it wasn't widely reported or anything, but I was hearing sort of light rumours that Austin and Widdop were not getting on. However, you wouldn't be able to tell from that performance on the weekend.
Yeah, as you allude to there, I think we both put it up on our pages as well. That they were looking at a Corey Norman Gareth Widdop swap deal, but nothing has come of that so far. It could just be speculation and rumor right now, but until a contract's signed by either party, then things don't change. But with that, there we'll get into the next one. It is this week's surprise package, the Salford Red Devils, who absolutely demolished Hull FC, taking on the Catalans Dragons. And this is a very tough one to call. I mean, I have an idea of where I'm going with this one, but you can't look past Salford after how they performed, because I mean they were trailing early, very similar to the Dragons, who got off to a slow start, but then when both teams started firing, my God, everything came together very quickly, and Salford were on the rampage basically.
Oh, I'll tell you what, big round of applause. He'd have to be, I know we don't do it, but I guess a player of the week for me, Tui Lolohea. 2 tries and a try assist in the first half alone. With Lolohea, on my page, it was pretty split. I put a post up last night. Many people did want to see him come back to the NRL based off of last night's performance, many of which said they wanted to see him possibly head to the Warriors. The other half, not so certain. He was a bit inconsistent when he was in the NRL last time, and as we said before, when he was at Leeds. So a big move from England back to Australia, that could be a bit risky. However, if he continues to play like he did yesterday against Hull FC, especially against some of those bigger teams, then I don't see why he wouldn't garner interest maybe from an NRL club or other Super League clubs. So a big round of applause from me for Lolohea. With that being said, I think I'm going to have to go with the Catalans Dragons here, just because of that dominant performance they put in against Castleford. We both had Castleford, I believe. So that was certainly a surprise. Yeah, look, Salford, they did put in that big performance. So did Lolohea. He was looking amazing. However, I'm a bit worried about Hull FC. Last night, to me, they were looking like the Brisbane Broncos. And I'm worried that Hull FC could have a Brisbane Broncos type season in 2020, especially after that performance. Just in defence, the defence was pretty much absent. I know we're talking about Salford and the Catalans here, but I am very worried about Hull FC. But we'll get to them in a bit.
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned there, Lolohea had an absolute field day. I think that's what happens when you give him a little bit more responsibility as well. I mean, when he was at Salford last season, he was very much playing in the shadow of Jackson Hastings. It was give Hastings the ball and let him create, and you're the ball runner. It was the same at Leeds. He was basically playing off Myler all the time. Whereas Salford, it looks like Ian Watson's given him free rein this season and just said, go out and create. And Lolohea is that incredibly unpredictable player who's got a devilish step on him. He's got a good passing game to him. Yes, he has a few errors in his game. But then again, we've seen that with a lot of players who come across from that very structured and rigid NRL platform to coming across and playing in a little bit more of an expansive league. I mean, there's a lot more free reign in Super League. The defence isn't quite where it needs to be for Super League for a lot of sides. So there's a lot more space, and Lolohea thrives off that. But I just think that looking at Catalans, they looked a more complete team. They put in a fantastic performance against Castleford. I know that we've not talked much about them yet, so I'll get onto them. But when they were 14-0 down after 20 minutes, you thought, oh God, here we go. Catalans are not feeling it here. It's going to be St. Helens all over again. And all of a sudden, it just sparked. Everything started coming together, and Catalans came out of nowhere. I mean, they scored a few easy tries as well. The Ulrichs da Costa one. Paul McShane, who by trade is a hooker, I'll be feeling very disappointed that he let someone like da Costa go over from there, because he was your primary marker, and he should know that if there's a hooker that close, they love a good opportunity at the line. So the fact that they could attack from anywhere, realistically, is what impressed me the most about Catalans. You saw it with the Israel Folau try, and with the Davis try as well. They weren't afraid to move the ball around and play a little bit more expansive and long ball, which have been Catalans haven't done for a long while. So it's looking promising for them. So yeah, likewise, I back Catalans for this one. I can see this being sort of a 6 to 12 point win for Catalans. I don't think Salford will blow out here.
Yeah, it'll just be interesting for me to see what Salford side shows up. I think Catalan should get the win. However, I'm not sold whether it'll be too close or whether it could be, like against Castleford. It depends as to whether Salford, proved last week that they are, one of the top teams, or if they just beat a very poor side.
Yeah, well, that will have to be left to be seen, and we'll no doubt talk about that some more next week. First place Wigan Warriors taking on a fourth place Leeds Rhinos, and I mean Wigan basically held on tooth and nail to take a win against Wakefield, who came back with a vengeance, whereas Leeds were in a bitterly disappointing afternoon, blown out emphatically by St. Helens, who look to be back to somewhere near their best. But Leeds have to do better if they're going to keep this Wigan side out.
Oh, 100%. 100%. I was shocked at the result. And I did tip St. Helens, but I was tipping them in a very close one. I believe you tipped Leeds in a very close one. So I'm happy to say we're both off the ball with that one. A dominant first half, which had me thinking, okay, what was it, 24-0, I believe.
Yep.
They were up by Saints, and I thought, okay, Saints should go on with it here. However, Leeds came back against Huddersfield last week. So maybe. However, obviously, we saw St. Helens go on to put Leeds to the sword, which I think re-establishes St. Helens as a premiership contender. I believe they're back up to second now, when they were up around 6th, 7th at the COVID break. So they look like they're well and truly firing now. But Leeds, I don't know. It's starting to look like it has the past couple of years. Again, they had that bad loss in round 1, all the way back in round 1 to Hull FC. This wasn't too dissimilar to that. I don't think. I don't know, man. And I can't see them beating Wigan as well. I'd be very surprised if Wigan puts them to the sword as Saints did. I can't see Leeds losing by that much to another top side 2 weeks in a row, but I can't tip them. So I'm going to say Wigan 10-14, something like that. I think Wigan will be in control for the majority of the game, but I don't think it'll be an absolute blowout. I think we see Leeds get some points here. But I think, as I said, Wigan should well and truly be in control. There was a bit of a scare against Wakefield. However, huge props to Wakefield in that one. I still think Wigan were probably the better side, but we'll get to Wakey in a minute. So, yeah, I'm going Wigan here, 10-14.
Yeah, I mean, I, as a Rhinos fan, I watched that game all the way through, most of it through gritted teeth, through pure frustration. I mean, just there were little things. I mean, you start with things like the team selection. I mean, you put Alex Sutcliffe in the centre and Rhys Evans on the bench. You've then got Cruz Lehman on the bench and Brad Dwyer in the squad as well. So you've essentially got 2 rotation forwards against a St. Helens pack that is known as a dominant force. Walmsley, Amor, Graham, Lees, just rampaging through the middle. And, you use Matt Pryor, who's 33 now, as an 80-minute loose forward. That's a problem straight off the bat. And it showed with Regan Grace, the twice he went the length of the field,
Yeah.
it was due to the fact that the kick chase off the fifth and last option was a poor choice. The kick chase didn't follow through, didn't push up, and Grace just went through a gap, and it was far too easy.
Well, that try right before half time, it seemed very easy for him to do so. And it seems like Leeds made it a bit easy for him. We know that Regan Grace is a fast, zippy young player. And if anyone can score a try like that, it's going to be Regan Grace. However, Leeds needed to be a bit better in defence there. That was a worrying sign. We even saw James Graham, I believe, crash over earlier in the game. I believe it might have even been the first try. That seemed a bit. Although it was a tough effort for him to get over, I feel like they should have been able to hold him up there, Leeds. A few worrying signs in that Leeds defence. Not as worrying for me as Hull FC, who again we'll get to, but I don't like comparing those two sides too much. I still feel like Leeds are the much better side, but the defensive efforts of both sides yesterday was very concerning for me.
Yeah, and I think if Leeds are going to have a shout of winning this game against Wigan, they need to look at things like their selection and, give someone like Tom Oldroyd a shot in the forwards, rather than playing Sutcliffe in the centres, either go Sutcliffe or Evans or Sutcliffe. It's just it's one thing or the other. You don't use an insurance policy centre off a bench because you lose a forward spot, and it was a poor game selection, to be honest, to pull that. So, but I'm hoping to see a better Leeds performance. I still think that Wigan are probably going to win this one, even as a Rhinos fan. I look at this one, they're out the back options in Hardacre. I mean, this is what happens when you play a fullback in a centre spot. It's fantastic because he's got such a good game management brain. You saw it with Handley at fullback because Handley's a natural winger. He'd, rather than going at the line and drawing and passing, he'd just pass because he's not familiar with that position.
Quick question. When Oliver Gildart's back in a few weeks, what happens? Do we see Hardacre go to fullback? You possibly push Bevan French into the halves? Because I know they were sort of experimenting him in that role early in the year. Is that how you see it? Because I don't think that'd be too bad an option, because I feel like it was in round 1 or 2, they used Bevan French as a half and he was pretty much the player of the match. Like he did really well. However, obviously, his primary position is fullback, as to is Zach Hardacre. So what would you do there?
In Super League, we have set numbers on shirts, and Bevan French wears the number 6, who's brought in as a ball running 6, and not a ball player. And Tommy Luluai has a 7 shirt. So now you've got the question of, do you now move Luluai out of the squad, put French into 6, and then Hardacre back to fullback with Gildart in the centre? I mean, imagine being a coach and having that level of depth and talent that your biggest problem is, God, where do I fit all of them? And it's not too dissimilar to what the Panthers have got going on right now, and they sit top of the NRL. It's the teams with the better squad depth that are giving coaches headaches that do very well. And Wigan are not too dissimilar, and I think that wake-up call against Wakefield won't have left Adrian Lamb too happy. So he'll be wanting to get that right, and I can see Wigan posting some points here, but I do think it's going to be like Wigan by no more than a converted try in this one for me. St Helens versus Wakefield. Obviously, we just discussed a few of those teams there. Saints putting Leeds well and truly out of the game there, and Wakefield unlucky not to come up with it. But first things first, let's discuss Tom Johnston. Mm-hmm. He is a different kind of winger. The finishing that guy has is just incredible. Tom's someone I know really well. I went to school with Tom. He's a really nice guy as well, but he's had a really tough couple of years with injury, and you've got to now think that he's going to be up there with international class. I know that he has picked up an England cap and got a hat-trick on debut, but he's going to be there or thereabouts in the next year or so, as long as he can stay injury free.
I'll tell you what, at the start of the game against Wigan yesterday, when he went down, I thought he's gone for the game at least. Like, I thought he'll have to come off. However, stayed on, put in a solid performance. You could tell just after the injury, he was still carrying it a bit. He was still feeling it a bit, but he stayed out there, and man, what a talent. What an amazing talent. After that game, Wakefield put in such a courageous performance. I haven't spoken to him like in a couple of months. I did an interview with him a little while ago, Reece Lynn, and I messaged him and I was like, you guys, like that was a really good performance. I know they didn't get the win, but yeah, just like how courageous Tom Johnson was. You could tell that Wakefield took this game very seriously. You could tell that they're sort of towards the bottom of the ladder, but they're in a weird spot where they're on the brink of sort of getting up there a bit, but they're also on the brink of dropping down, and they know where they're at, and they came to play against Wigan. And I think we were talking about it when we were messaging before. Wakefield could be a smoky to make the finals this year if they put in performances like that week in, week out. They're going to have to put in one if there are any chance of beating St. Helens. With all that being said, I am tipping Saints, but you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if this game wasn't too dissimilar to the one against Wigan. I think Wakefield are going to show up ready to win with all that belief. You know, it's sort of desperation times, weirdly enough, for Wakefield, but they have that back five. I was really impressed with Gigo on debut as well for Wakefield. Yeah, they've got guys like Tupou, as we said, Reece Lynn, Tom Johnston. They're looking really good at the moment with their backs. I'm very interested to see how they go against St. Helens. As I said, I'm tipping Saints to win, but you know what? It's 10 points or less, I'm going to say, for this one. 10 points or less. And I know Saints even just put Leeds to the sword, but I feel like Wakefield are going to show up for this one. Saints by 10 or less. I'm going to say, I'll say around 40 points are scored in this one as well. I feel like both teams will put a few points on the board. However, it'll be a tight one.
Yeah, so I can see Saints winning this one as well. They're full of confidence. I mean, beating Leeds at Headingley, and especially giving them their first 0 in Super League as well at Headingley in throughout since Super League started is that's only going to give you a lot of confidence.
Yeah.
Wakefield, I think, will struggle in this one, and the reason that I think that is because Saints came with a game plan and executed against Leeds, and I didn't see them doing the same thing here. And that's play them up the middle. You know, they know that Wakefield's strengths are the edges. Kay bagged a double. Lynn looking very good. Tupou, Johnston, ability to finish all over. But when Saints drag a team into that arm wrestle, forcing them to come 90 metres against their middles, it's a horrible position to be in. It really is just too much of a big ask, especially for a team that's currently 9th, haven't beaten Saints since April of 2018. St. Helens are looking the real deal again, and it's their forwards that are laying that platform and making it near impossible for teams to make a realistic dent. I mean, the only hope a team has got of putting any points on Saints is moving the ball to the edges, and that's where Wakefield find their strengths. So I'm not going to say that Wakefield get, a 0 or don't cross 10 points, but I think that Saints win this one by 12 plus. I'm going to say that they rumble it up the middle. I expect to see some of their forwards on the score sheet as well. Walmsley, if he turns up and plays like he did against Leeds, these Wakefield forwards are in for a world of pain, because that was the best I've seen Alex Walmsley play probably for the last 3-4 years. He was incredible. It is the Castleford Tigers taking on Hull FC, two teams that started very well and quickly faded away to be on the end of some, quite frankly, embarrassing scores for them by their club standards. I mean, last week we talked about Castleford being there or thereabouts in the top 4, top 5, and really pushing on and making improvement from where they were in 2017 when they made the grand final. But ultimately, that fast start came back to bite them. Catalans fought back, took the win. Same with Hull, got out to a good start. But Salford clawing their way back, and it was just a case of defensive lapses all over the field. Real problems for them.
Oh, 100%. I would say you look on paper and say this one's tough to pick, right, because of the results of the last two games. But I'm going to pretty comfortably go with Castleford here. I have to say, I think they still have the potential to be that top 4, top 5 side. I know it was a very surprising defeat to the Catalans, but watching Hull FC, by the end of that game, the defence was near non-existent. It was funny. I was watching this one with a mate he's only really just started getting into rugby league. He's gotten right into the NRL this year. I was like, we'll watch the Super League. And we watched this first game. He really enjoyed it. But, even one thing he noticed is that Hull just gave up. It looked like by the end of that game, they had just given up. And as I said, you can't say it any better. The defense just really was not existent. They allowed guys like Lolohea to run over the top of him. His connection with Ken Seo throughout the game was really good. But again, Hull, I don't know where they go from here. I'm very strongly, as I said, I'm getting Brisbane Broncos vibes from Hull FC. I'm starting to feel like they won't have a good season, and we could potentially end up in a situation where the two Hull teams are the bottom two sides on the ladder. And, with the passionate Hull fans, they will be thankful that relegation has been scrapped for this year, because they're both looking like they're going to be in trouble in 2020. I just can't. I don't know, man. The defense was just non-existent, and I don't know how you can turn that around in 1 week. Their confidence seems shot. I hate saying this because good friends with Lee Addison, shout out to him from the mighty Black and Whites. Lee, if you're watching, I'm sorry to say this, but I feel like Castleford take this one probably relatively easily. Mate, 14 plus. And I hate to be disrespectful to teams, but I think Castleford take this one relatively easily. Are you with me there, or
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the Tigers, you don't often see them go back-to-back losses. You don't often see them losing by a good margin either. Hull, I mean, it's been backward steps ever since the departure of Lee Radford, to be honest. They started off the season well with that win at Leeds, but then have really just struggled to find any form. Very inconsistent. One win in the last 5, 27-26 against the Warrington Wolves. It looks bad for Hull, and it shocks me to see them losing those games. And I mean, they register a decent amount of points. It's just that they don't have to, they don't have the ability there to defend. It wasn't against Warrington, sorry, against Wakefield. I just picked myself up on my error there. But Hull, just for whatever reason, their defence just seems to lapse. They've got attacking options all over the field, and it just seems to be that when it comes to those defensive efforts, they're just not prepared to make the extra mile into the tackle. They're falling off, allowing players that they know have got an offload game to them get the arm free and create second phase play. And you saw when Salford did it, they thrived off that second play, off the second phase. Anytime Salford moved the ball out the back, Hull's line just wasn't tracking like the Super League outfit. It was like they were sticking to the lead runner, and there was nobody tracking the run on the outside, nobody following the run of the fullback along the backs. It was a difficult watch, to be honest, just because of how poor Hull FC were. I can see Hull being better this week, but I can't see them being better than Castleford. And so I join you on that one and say that Castleford win this one by 12 plus. It's going to be something like 40 points to 18 or 40 points to 20. But Hull will make a strike because they've always got points in them. But they just won't outscore Castleford, and they definitely won't outdefend Castleford.
100%. I was just thinking then, you look back to the preseason, Hull recruited very well. The likes of Manu Ma'u, Mahe Fanua, plus they already got guys like Jake Connor, Albert Kelly in their side. And after that first game against Leeds, when they beat them pretty easily, I remember thinking after that game, wow, Hull FC are looking like genuine Super League title contenders. I know their faithful have been waiting a long time for them to be back on top of the league again, but it came crashing down after that. Like literally right after that, it was so optimistic. They had a gun side, a big win over a big team, and then it just plummeted. You know, it's not even like a Brisbane Broncos where they were 2-0 and then we had this big long break and then they sort of dropped off. You know, Hull can't even really blame it on that because it was pretty much instantly after that first game. And then, of course, the controversial sacking of Lee Radford, you know, live 5 minutes after the game had ended. I think it was that game against Warrington. I remember waking up, coming downstairs. I think it was a Saturday morning for me, and I called the end of the game. And then Jenna Brooks was sort of waiting there to interview Lee Radford, and she was like, you know, you could see something was a bit off. Then out comes the chairman, who pretty much just announced that Radford had been sacked right after the game. So crazy stuff. You know, it even made sort of mainstream rugby league news over here in Australia, like Fox League, and like I know it was on the Matty John show. They were reporting like what's going on with Hull, like, and I guess that sort of just epitomised how their season's going. I'm trying to look to the future, right, for the rest of the season, and I don't know how Hull can sort of come back from this. Hey,
yeah, they need to improve their culture, and they need to get back to winning ways. I mean, after as good as a public execution of your head coach is, it's not a good idea. It doesn't give your team the greatest confidence because if your chairman's prepared to out your head coach like that, imagine what happens if you stop performing. So I think there's a little bit of fear in the whole camp. I think there needs to be an improvement on the culture. More importantly, there needs to be an improvement on defence because they've conceded a lot of points this season. It's out of character. Hull are usually that dogged team who you beat. If you beat them by no more than a converted try or so. But you know, this season is just a different Hull side, and for all the wrong reasons, unfortunately, for Hull fans. But you know, it's not going to be forever. They're a good side. They've got good players. They just need to figure out where they basically how they get things right again now.
100%.
Yeah. And well, that is all our games previewed. We hope you've enjoyed it. We hope you'll be joining us again next week, where we'll be talking about whether we got it right or how wrong we got it. But yeah, we'll be looking forward to it. We'll be enjoying all the rugby league over the weekend as well as ever. Thank you to Oliver from Rugby League, in my opinion, for joining us. All his links are down in the description on YouTube and in the comments on Facebook. Go check him out. Make sure that you are giving all his socials love. Again, thank you to RCR Nutrition for sponsoring that. That's www.rcr-products.co.uk using code CKM for 20% off to get your summer body back on track, ready for Christmas over here. And no, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you for the next one. See you, bye.